Free agency rumors are continuing to escalate for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and a new free agency target for the Leafs has been revealed as rumors are starting to circulate surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs and James Van Riemsdyk. We're going to write down the exact rumors and discuss could he be a perfect fit in Toronto going forward. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself. And again, bear with the quality. It's going to be a little iffy over, probably starting yesterday's video and today's video. But then the next video will be good. I'll be back at my setup. I'm on a cruise right now, but still wanted to keep you up to date with the latest Toronto Maple Leafs news. But again, yeah, bear with the quality. I apologize for that one. Don't blame Darius. It's on me. But Darius, let's get right into it. James Van Riemsdyk, a former Toronto Maple Leaf, beloved by some fans, depending on what kind of side of the spectrum you're on in that regard. But reports are starting to escalate regarding just the Toronto Maple Leafs and them getting another forward and augmenting their group, because obviously, it's been pretty quiet over the past couple weeks for the Toronto Maple Leafs on the Marner front, and then even the Nick Robertson trade front, which we suspect will probably happen soon. You can see this article drop. It's a JVR and the Leafs, a reunion worth considering, and it basically goes on to say that the Bruins signed James Van Riemsdyk to a one-year contract last season, and he had a bit of a career resurgence, scoring 11 goals and 27 assists for 38 points, and he was a crucial part of the Bruins power play, getting 6 goals and 6 assists in for 12 power play goals, 1 goal, 5 assists in 11 games in the playoffs. They did okay in the playoffs as well, which is something the Leafs could use. Didn't do phenomenal, but Darius, what are your thoughts on this? I know a lot of Leafs fans were actually kind of pointing to this guy as someone the Leafs should be targeting earlier on in the offseason, and they haven't signed any forwards since a while ago. So what are your thoughts on this? I think it could make some sense, and they haven't done anything to augment their forward group since Max Domi really in the earlier.
Yeah, they're going to need forward help, right? At this point, as the roster stands right now, they can't be done. It's not a complete lineup. They're going to need help up front. And James Van Riemsdyk, I love JVR. Okay, he was my favorite Leaf when he was on the team back, I guess, 10 years ago. At this point, it wasn't even Kessel, right? I think it was JVR for me, and I think a lot of fans, I don't want to say or speak for a lot of fans, but I think he was a fan favorite. I think a lot of fans remember him very fondly, and he was a really good player for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this guy is a power play specialist, honestly. He's really good in front of the net, and he was good for the Bruins last year, and they split their power play unit in half as well. That was another story about the Bruins last year. When it wasn't going, they actually split them in half, and JVR kind of came alive and got some points through that. So he could be a really good option for the Leafs. There's a lot of talk about, how John Tavares has become a net front specialist. JVR, I think, is better than him. I think this guy can really help the Leafs in that regard. And, in the playoffs, just staple him to the front of the net. A lot of the Leafs players do not go to the front of the net. Tyler Bertuzzi kind of added that last year. JVR can maybe be that guy. I'm not saying he's Tyler Bertuzzi level, and he's obviously older, but he can really help in that regard. And not only that, special teams aside, he can add depth scoring, right? He was pretty good in a reduced role with the Boston Bruins last year, and he's not going to put up a crazy amount of points, but he can add depth scoring, especially in the playoffs, which is exactly what the Leafs need. So I think this is a pretty good fit and reunion for the Leafs, and it's probably not going to cost them a lot either. And they haven't signed Hakanpää yet either, right? So they do have some money still available. So I wonder if they take a look at this, because I would suspect no matter where this player signs, it's probably going to be a one-year deal and pretty affordable.
Yeah, and we'll get into the Hakanpää stuff in a future video, which is still very interesting. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good fit for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And again, Bertuzzi's gone. They haven't done anything since Max Domi on that front, anything significant at least. You can see here, and it kind of backs up, the article kind of backs up what you said, Darius. It says, bringing in someone like Van Riemsdyk would be beneficial. He's a veteran in the league with great experience playing with someone like Max Domi, and of course, Craig Berube, who's the coach now, which is funny because every single target we were discussing, all these, they're kind of, Craig Berube is always mentioned and how he can augment these guys, which I think makes a ton of sense. And I'm really excited to see Craig Berube and what he does. But he says, I'm sure Leafs fans will welcome a reunion with JVR. And let's get into it a little bit here. You can see JVR, 38 points in 71 games. Like, he still has, again, it was a career year for him, only averaging 13 minutes a game, putting up 38 points. Like, will he replace Tyler Bertuzzi's point production? No, he probably won't. He definitely won't. But what he can do at a much cheaper rate, even though he is 35, is provide some stability to the forward group there, especially because he's played in Toronto before, obviously under different coaching staffs, but I don't know, Darius, I like it a lot. I just think the fit makes a ton of sense for both sides, especially given the fact that at this point, whether you think the Leafs kind of dropped the ball by not signing Tyler Bertuzzi or not signing Jake DeBrusk or any of these guys, if you bring in James Van Riemsdyk, it will be much cheaper to bring in James Van Riemsdyk than a lot of the other players that were signed, especially with how weird the free agency was this offseason and how expensive players ended up being. I think it would be a good happy medium for them because they need to bring up some guys. Even if you think highly of Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, all those guys, you need another veteran, especially because they're going to win. They're trying to win like the Cup this year or next year with the Chris Tanev and contracts like that.
Yeah, you can't fill in the bottom of your lineup with a bunch of rookies and expect to do well in the playoffs. It probably just won't go well, right? So you have to look at some veteran, not only leadership, because, JVR was good for the Leafs in the playoffs too when he played for the Leafs, right? So he likes the moment and the spotlight. He's played in Toronto before. And I think the Leafs, if you look at the lineup, they're banking on Matthew Nyes taking a step. So if that does go to plan and that happens, you look at Bobby McMahon on the second line. If he continues to play the way he did the second half of the season, right, where he was really catching fire, and then you add a guy like JVR to the lineup as well, I think your winger problem could be fixed, right? I'm not saying it's fantastic or one of the best in the league, but I think you're okay, right? It's obviously not best case scenario because I think Tyler Bertuzzi was a great player, but I think you're okay, right? So I think they're banking on a couple things to go absolutely right. And if they do, that's great. But if you add another piece like this into the lineup that can add depth scoring, right? I think you'll be okay heading into the season. So I like this fit because I think this player is tough. I think he knows how to, get it done in the playoffs. And he's getting older, but he was very useful for the Bruins last year too.
Yeah, it raises the floor a bit for the bottom six, especially if you're trying to, like you mentioned, put a lot of stock into Matthew Nyes. And I think we both think he's going to improve a lot. We saw it in the playoffs. He was a force. He was a beast. But in that bottom six, you can see it here basically when considering potential suitors. This is the report it came from. Makes sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And losing Tyler Bertuzzi is kind of what all of this stems from, which I don't think was a bad decision given the contract that he got and a lot of the players got. But they need to fill him in with something. And I think that JVR is the guy they can go for. And you can see here they will likely need to settle for a bargain free agent for. Because at this point, there's most of the good, not that he's not good, a lot of the elite forwards or higher end talent is gone. They're gone in free agency. Free agency's been underway for a while now. You can also see this here from Mark Fridas. It says adding JVR back into the Maple Leafs lineup could do wonders for the Maple Leafs, especially on the power play, where he would provide a strong presence in front of the net. And as Leafs fans know and remember, JVR was a specialist in the power play during his time in Toronto. And seeing him in the power play is kind of an underrated asset of what he can do. And you mentioned it. The Leafs power play it struggled, especially, it was very up and down, struggled heavily in the playoffs. It started off really good until December, and then the PP really struggled. What are your thoughts on this specific aspect of it?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think he's very dynamic on the power play, right? And like I said, a net front guy, and the Leafs really don't have much of that. And they were very stationary last year on the power play, and they didn't change anything. So the power play has to change too. And I think the personnel on the power play has to change as well. They have to shake it up and they have to split the units, right? Because it just simply wasn't working last year. And if you add a guy like JVR, like I said, he goes straight to the net, right? My memories of him on the Leafs on the power play is that he just goes to the net and he gets it done, right? So there's a lot of moments in the 2013 playoffs and even like 2017 playoffs where he just goes straight to the net and he makes it happen, right? A deflection or he makes a smart little play in front. So adding him to the power play could, do wonders for the Maple Leafs. Honestly, I think it would really help. And not only that, like I said, away from the special teams, he can still chip in for a goal here and there. He's still a useful player at the NHL level, and he's gonna only make, I'm not saying league min, but it's not going to cost you a lot, and it's probably going to be a 1-year contract. So I think it works for the Maple Leafs. Like you said, there's not a lot of star power left out there, right? It's maybe JVR and Daniel Sprong that I could see making sense for the Leafs. So this could work.
Yeah, a couple guys left, 12 PP points. Like, there's a lot of going on there, which is very good. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all this. And hopefully the Leafs make a move soon because they really need to pick up one of these players before some other team does. That'll wrap it up. See you soon.